Hey, this is Mark from MTC Media, and this is one of these things where I'm going to touch on a few things with NIL. I'm going to touch on a few things with um, some of the stuff with the younger generation, and we're going to start with NIL. Earlier today, on one of the locals, I'm in the Washington D.C. area. For those who don't know, one of the local sports talk radio had on a guest that was just essentially making things up, and he came on as a guest and he was misrepresenting one what NIL is, and then he was trying to extrapolate it to what is the problems with basketball in America. And it was the same stereotypes. If you give certain people money, that then now they're going to get lazy. And the team he used as an example was Memphis and the problems that they are going through now. And it came off as, you see, this is the problem with NIL. You give them something, and now all of a sudden they don't care. And he said, and I quote, some people are some fans are paying, half their paychecks to go to these games. And I'm thinking to myself, well, first and foremost, with NIL, especially even if you look down to OTE and they just signed a deal with Adidas, these kids aren't being paid by the fans. And, stop with that. And you can see where this is going. You can see where you're not being paid by the fans. Some of these deals are external. Some of these deals are happening in high school as more and more states are now legislating NIL for high school students. Some of these guys are signing with agencies long before they get to college. And those agencies are looking for external dollars for them long before they go to college. So no, the money that people are getting isn't only from collectives. These guys are signing deals and they're starting to collect on deals well before then. And everything is not tied to winning. I read a comment today saying, how can you determine a fair market value for a high school player if he hasn't gotten to college and produced any wins? Who says it has anything to do with winning? It has to do with their marketability in the social media era. That's what it has to do. You don't have to win. The Twins who were at Miami of Florida that was getting all the NILs, they didn't have to win. They weren't getting paid based on wins at Miami's women's basketball program. It was their marketability. If you want to go to the pro level, LaMelo Ball could go through his whole career and not do any significant winning. And he's going to have incredible value to the people and the entities that are endorsing him. Because with this younger generation, and in a generation where everyone can watch any team and any player that they want, because of the amount of channels, because of all the streaming, because of all the highlights on social media, they don't need, this is not, and I know some people don't like this, especially when I'm in media rooms. We're past the world that they need the guy in the top hat chomping a cigar who's a sports journalist to determine who's a good guy and who isn't. And they need to explain the game to you because you don't understand. No one needs that. Kids know more now before they get to college about the game, about the players, about all this, much more than back then. And as far as getting to know the players, they can get to know the players on social media. Some of these kids start getting attention for their talents in 8th and 9th grade. So they don't need, Joe Middle America, who has dreamed to be a sports journalist all his life, to sit around there and also be the expert on the game, be the expert on who has character and who isn't, be the expert on who has integrity, be the expert on who you should like and who you shouldn't. Those days were not perfect, and they usually worked negatively towards some people in society. And now everybody can make their own determination. And I know that ticks off some people who want to make sports journalism as a living because they're not needed. Not in that aspect, they're not needed. They're not. And kids on these generations, especially I have a son that's 17 years old, they're not looking to Joe Midwest guy to tell him what how to understand a game and what players to like and who's a good guy and who isn't. I'm not looking to them for that because they're going to sit down around and say they are intelligent enough to know that you have your own agenda. And you have your own agenda. And that agenda might not be the same as my agenda. You have your own belief system. That belief system might not be the same as mine. So no, your word isn't bond, and no, we're not going to view you as some sort of expert, and we're not going to view you as anything really. You're a guy who, or a woman who puts words to a piece of paper. But the idea that you're going to have this overarching importance to how kids see athletes, when they can see athletes on social media, through their accounts, on podcasts and everything else. And people say, yeah, but it's curated. Well, you honestly think that sports journalists aren't sitting around there being biased? They're going to be writing from a perspective of their own. There's no such thing as, oh, it's unbiased and they're just reporting the news and stuff. That's in the movies. I sit here in media rooms every week, multiple times a week. I can tell you right now, they all, accredited, not accredited, anything else, they all have their own agendas, and they speak and they lean towards their own agenda. Stop it. They're not above that. Don't let them tell you they're above that, because they're full of, and I don't cuss on this name. They're full of you know what. So no, NIL is not ruining college sports. There have been teams who have started off fast and have ended bad. Look at the 94 North Carolina Tar Heels, who were coming off of a national championship, had players back from that national championship, had one of the top recruiting classes come in with Rasheed Wallace, Jeff McGinnis, Jerry Stackhouse, and they didn't even get out the first weekend. They lost to Boston College. That happens. It happens every year in college basketball. It happened long before there was NIL. It happens when college sports was playing people under the table. It happened then too. So stop it. No, players aren't getting lazy because they get paid. No, players aren't. And they always do it for certain sports. So I wasn't surprised that the guy who came on, it was basketball, because that fits into that 1970s attitude towards basketball, which, if you're my age, you know what that is. You know what that is. So, no, NIL is not killing college athletics. It's not killing college basketball. No, your market value is not based on how many wins you get. It is based on what your value is to that product or that entity, whatever that product and entity is. That could be based on winning. It could be based on looks. It could be based on where you're from. It could be based on many things. It could be based on your social media handle that has X amount of followers and that the young kids dig. I know a lot of young kids that are in third, fourth, fifth, sixth grades. I see more. And by the way, if you don't know, I coach in high school. I coach on one of the shoe tours. I'm around kids as a coach 12 months out the year. And then I cover college basketball, several college basketball teams in the area. So that, and I talk to NBA scouts and I talk to pro scouts. So I feel like I'm qualified enough by getting the information and being in those rooms and speaking to those people all the time, more than the people who never step in any of those gyms. And there's a lot of them who talk as if they know everything and they never step in any of those gyms.